If you're over 60 and planning any international travel in 2026, there are new passport rules rolling out right now that could get you denied entry at the border, even if your passport looks perfect and won't expire for years. Immigration officers at major entry points are now enforcing requirements that didn't exist when most of us got our passports, and thousands of seniors are finding out about these changes the hard way, standing at customs after a long flight, bags in hand, only to be told they cannot enter the country they just spent thousands of dollars to visit. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 critical passport changes that are catching older travelers completely off guard in 2026, and more importantly, I'll show you exactly what to check right now, today, before you book another international trip, so you don't lose your money, your vacation, or your dignity at the border. Listen, these aren't small technical updates buried in government websites. These are enforcement priorities that immigration officers have been specifically trained to look for. And from what retired Border Protection agents have told me after reviewing hundreds of recent cases, seniors are being flagged at a much higher rate than younger travelers. Why? Because many of us have held the same passport for years. We don't fly internationally as often as we used to. And frankly, weaker eyesight and memory make it easy to miss the fine print that's now being enforced like never before. I spent the last 3 weeks going through traveler complaint reports, speaking with immigration attorneys who work directly with denied entry cases, and talking to seniors who've been turned away at airports in Paris, London, Tokyo, and even when returning home to the United States. The same 5 issues kept coming up again and again. And what makes this so frustrating is that in every single case, the traveler thought they had done everything correctly. They showed up early, brought all their documents, had their return tickets printed, and still got stopped. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what those 5 passport traps are, which one affects the most seniors, and what you can do this week to protect yourself. If you've got a trip planned for 2026 or you're thinking about booking one, stay with me until the end because I'm also going to share a simple checklist you can print and keep with your passport that covers everything immigration officers are now looking for. And if this information helps you feel even a little more prepared, do me a favor and tap the like button so YouTube shows this to more travelers over 60 who need to see it. All right, let's get into the first critical change, and this one is costing seniors more money than all the others combined. Passport rule number 5, the 6-month validity requirement that airlines won't tell you about. Here's what happened to a couple I spoke with last month. They're both in their late 60s, retired teachers from Ohio, and they booked a dream trip to Thailand to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary. They did everything by the book, bought travel insurance, got their vaccinations, printed their hotel confirmations, the works. Their passports were valid, expiring in April 2026, and their flight was scheduled for January 12, 2026. They figured they had more than 3 months of validity, plenty of time for a 2-week vacation. They arrived at the airport, checked their bags, and handed their passports to the airline agent at the counter. The agent looked at the passport, typed something into the computer, and then said the words that made their hearts sink. "I'm sorry, but Thailand requires 6 months of passport validity from your date of entry. Your passports don't meet that requirement. I can't check you in." They tried to explain that they'd be back in 2 weeks, that they weren't staying until April, but it didn't matter. The airline wouldn't budge. Thailand's immigration law requires 6 months of validity, and if the airline boards you without it, they face massive fines and have to pay to fly you back. That couple lost $4,800 in non-refundable airfare, plus another $2,200 in prepaid hotels and tours. Almost $7,000 gone in a 5-minute conversation at the ticket counter. And here's what makes this so dangerous for those of us over 60. When we got our passports years ago, this 6-month rule either didn't exist or wasn't enforced strictly. We remember a time when as long as your passport was valid for the dates of your trip, you were fine. That's not the world we live in anymore. Today, more than 80 countries enforce some version of the 6-month validity rule, and it's not just exotic destinations. We're talking about popular senior travel spots. Much of Southeast Asia, including Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia, parts of the Caribbean, several countries in Africa and the Middle East, even some places in Central and South America. And the cruelest part? Different countries calculate those 6 months differently. Some count from your entry date. Others count from your departure date. A few count from when your visa was issued if you needed one. If you're planning a trip with multiple stops, you could meet the requirement for one country but not another, and you won't find out until you're standing at a ticket counter or a border checkpoint. So why does this hit seniors harder than younger travelers? For one, we tend to keep our passports for the full 10 years without thinking about it. Younger people who travel frequently for work are constantly checking expiration dates and renewing early. We don't have that habit built in. Second, getting to a passport office or dealing with the renewal process online takes more energy than it used to. Standing in line, filling out forms, taking new photos. It all feels like more of a hassle at 65 than it did at 35, so we put it off. And third, if you're retired and your kids or grandkids book the trip for you as a gift, it's easy for everyone to assume that as long as the passport isn't expired, everything's fine. Nobody thinks to add 6 months to the return date and check the expiration against that. What to do right now? Go get your passport. Open it to the page with your photo and find the expiration date. Now pull out your phone and open the calendar. Add 6 months to today's date. If your passport expires anywhere in that 6-month window, you need to start the renewal process immediately, especially if you have any international travel planned. Don't wait. In the United States, routine passport processing currently takes 8 to 11 weeks, and that's when things are running smoothly. During busy travel seasons like summer or the holidays, it can stretch to 14 weeks or more. If you're over 60 and mobility is an issue, you don't want to be rushing to a passport agency at the last minute trying to get an expedited renewal. Here's the rule of thumb I recommend. Your passport should be valid for at least 6 months after your planned return date, not your departure date. When you're booking any international trip, ask this exact question. Does this destination require 6 months of passport validity? And if so, how is that calculated? Most travel agents and airline booking sites won't volunteer this information, so you have to ask directly. And here's a pro tip that can save you a lot of stress. When you get your new passport, take a photo of the expiration date page and save it on your phone. Then set a calendar reminder for exactly 9 months before it expires. That gives you a 3-month buffer to renew without any panic. And if something delays the process, you still have time to fix it before you hit that 6-month threshold. One more thing. If you're traveling with your spouse or grandchildren, check their passports too. Children's passports only last 5 years, and it's easy to forget that a grandchild's passport might have expired since the last family trip. Passport rule number 4, the blank pages requirement that's getting stricter. Now, even if your passport is valid for years and meets the 6-month rule, there's another trap waiting, and this one catches seniors completely off guard because it has nothing to do with expiration dates. A woman I spoke with, 62 years old from Florida, booked a river cruise through Europe with stops in 5 different countries. Her passport didn't expire until 2028, so she thought she was set. She arrived at the airport in Miami for her flight to Amsterdam, handed her passport to the airline agent, and the agent started flipping through it page by page. After a moment, the agent looked up and said, "Ma'am, you don't have enough blank pages. You need at least 2 completely blank pages for this itinerary, and you only have 1. She tried to explain that everything was digital now, that most countries don't even stamp passports anymore, but the agent shook her head. It doesn't matter. The countries on your itinerary require 2 blank pages, and the airline can't board you without them. She had to cancel her entire trip, losing $3,400 in cruise fees and flights. Here's what's happening. Many countries require 1, 2, or even 4 completely blank pages in your passport for visa stamps or entry-exit records, and even though more borders are going digital, the rules haven't changed. If you don't have enough blank space, you can be denied boarding before you even leave the United States, or worse, you can be denied entry when you arrive overseas. And here's the key detail most people miss. The pages have to be completely blank, not mostly blank. If there's even a small stamp or mark on a page, immigration officers don't count it as blank. You need full, clean pages with nothing on them, and some countries specifically require that those blank pages be facing each other two side-by-side pages in the same spread. Why does this hurt seniors more than younger travelers? Because we tend to keep our passports for the full 10-year period, and over a decade, those pages fill up. You take a few trips to Europe, a cruise to the Caribbean, maybe visit family in Asia, and suddenly you're down to 3 or 4 blank pages without even realizing it. Younger travelers who got their passports more recently or who travel less have more space. Plus, weaker eyesight makes it harder for those of us over 60 to see small stamps or count pages accurately. You might think you have 3 blank pages when you actually only have 1.5. And here's something that changed recently that a lot of seniors don't know. The US State Department used to let you add extra pages to your passport. You could send it in, they'd insert more pages, and send it back. That program ended in 2016. Now, if your passport is running out of blank pages, your only option is to renew the entire passport, which means more paperwork, more waiting, and more money. What to do right now? Open your passport and count the blank pages carefully. Don't just flip through quickly. Look at each page under good light and make sure there are no stamps, stickers, or marks anywhere on it. If you have trouble seeing clearly, ask your spouse, your kids, or your grandkids to help you count. You're looking for at least 4 completely blank pages, ideally with at least one set of 2 pages side by side with nothing on them. If you're down to 3 blank pages or fewer, start planning a renewal even if your passport won't expire for years. Don't wait until you're booking a trip. It's much less stressful to renew early when there's no deadline pressure. Here's the magic question to ask when booking any international trip. How many blank passport pages does this destination require? Don't assume. Ask specifically. And if you're going to multiple countries, ask about each one. And here's an insider move. When you get a new passport, take a photo of the first page and the last page and save them on your phone. After each big international trip, flip through your passport and count how many fresh pages you used. When you're about halfway through the book, that's your signal to start thinking about renewal. Passport rule number 3, the damaged passport problem you can't see. This is the one that's causing the most confusion and frustration at airports right now, because travelers are being told their passports are damaged when they look absolutely perfect. A gentleman I interviewed, 68 years old from Texas, was flying to London to visit his daughter. His passport was only 3 years old, looked brand new, clean cover, crisp pages, clear photo. He handed it to the gate agent. She scanned it, and immediately the system beeped an error. She tried again. Another error. She looked at him and said, "Sir, your passport chip isn't reading. This passport is considered damaged. You can't board this flight." He was stunned. He said, "But it looks fine. I've barely used it." She explained that the RFID chip embedded in the passport wasn't functioning, which meant the electronic gates at Heathrow wouldn't be able to process him. Even though the physical passport looked perfect, the technology inside was dead, and that made it invalid for travel to the UK. He missed his flight, paid $1,850 to rebook, and had to overnight his passport to a regional agency for emergency replacement, which cost another $400. Here's what's going on that most seniors have no idea about. Modern passports have a tiny computer chip and antenna embedded in the back cover. That chip stores your photo, your biographical data, and other security information. When you go through automated border control gates, which are now standard at most major international airports, the scanner reads that chip. If the chip is damaged or dead, the system rejects your passport even if the book itself looks perfect. And here's the problem. That chip and antenna are incredibly fragile. If you fold your passport, if you carry it in your back pocket and sit on it, if you bend it to fit into a tight pocket or purse, if it gets wet or exposed to extreme heat, that chip can crack or the antenna can break. The passport still looks fine on the outside, but internally it's broken. You won't know there's a problem until you try to use it at an airport, and by then it's too late. Why are seniors at higher risk for this? Many of us have carried wallets and important documents in our back pockets our whole lives. It's a habit. We also tend to reuse the same travel accessories for years. That old leather passport holder from 1995 wasn't designed for a passport with an RFID chip. It might be too tight or the wrong shape, putting pressure on the chip area. Plus, If you've had the same passport for 8 or 9 years and it's been through dozens of trips, the chip has been scanned, heated, cooled, and jostled hundreds of times. The older the passport, the higher the chance that chip has failed. And with weaker eyesight, we can't see the microscopic damage that causes these failures. The passport looks perfect to us, but the technology inside is dead. What to do right now? First, never fold, bend, or roll your passport. Always keep it flat. If you currently carry your passport in your back pocket, stop immediately. Get a flat document holder, a travel wallet, or a hardshell passport case designed to protect RFID chips. These cost about $10 to $15 and can save you thousands in missed flights and emergency replacements. Second, never put your passport through the washing machine, leave it in a hot car, or store it anywhere damp. The chip is sensitive to moisture and extreme temperatures. If your passport has been wet even once, you should consider renewing it early because the chip may be compromised even if it dried out and looks okay. Third, if you have an iPhone or Android phone, you can actually test your passport chip at home. There are free passport reader apps that use your phone's NFC sensor to scan the chip. Download one, try scanning your passport, and if it won't read, that's a sign your chip may be failing. You should renew before your next trip, and here's a critical tip. If you're already at the airport and the chip fails, don't argue with the agent about how good your passport looks. Instead, say this exact phrase: "I understand the chip isn't reading. Is there a manual processing option available, or do I need to request supervisor assistance?" Sometimes for certain destinations, and if you have enough time before your flight, they can process you manually, but only if you stay calm and ask specifically for that option. And finally, when you get a new passport, treat the chip area like it's made of glass. That back cover where the chip is embedded, handle it gently, store it carefully, and never put pressure on it. Passport rule number 2, the photo and appearance discrepancy problem. This one is incredibly sensitive, but I have to talk about it because it's affecting more and more seniors, especially those of us who've had the same passport for 7, 8, 9 years. A 71-year-old woman from California was returning to the United States after visiting her sister in Canada. At the border, the officer looked at her passport photo, then looked at her face, then back at the photo. He asked her to remove her glasses. He asked her to pull her hair back. Then he said, "Ma'am, you don't look like this photo anymore. I need to verify your identity through secondary screening." She was taken to a separate room, questioned for over an hour, asked about her birthplace, her parents' names, addresses she'd lived at, and finally, after running biometric checks, they let her through. She was humiliated, exhausted, and shaken. What happened? Her passport photo was taken in 2016. She was 63 then, and over the 8 years since, her appearance had changed significantly. Her hair had gone from brown to mostly gray. She'd gained weight due to medication. She now wore glasses full-time, and she'd developed deeper wrinkles and age spots. To her, these changes happened gradually and felt normal. But to a border officer comparing her current face to a photo from 2016, the differences were significant enough to raise questions. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Aging changes our appearance more visibly between 60 and 70 than between 30 and 40. Weight changes, hair color changes, skin texture changes, health issues that affect our face, these are all normal parts of getting older. But they can make passport photos from 8 or 9 years ago look like a different person. Border officers are trained to watch for fraudulent documents, and a significant appearance mismatch is a red flag. They're required to investigate,